Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into the really beautiful and powerful opening of the 26th chapter of the Quran, Surah Ash-Shu'ara, which means the poets. In just 9 short verses, this passage sets up this incredible stage that explores divine mercy, the real weight of human choice, and what faith is all about. So let's jump right in.
So the chapter kicks off with these 3 letters from the Arabic alphabet: Tha, Sin, Mim. Right off the bat, these letters signal that what we're about to hear isn't just ordinary speech. Their exact meaning? Well, that's considered a divine secret, kind of like a beautiful puzzle that invites us to come to the text with a sense of humility and a lot of wonder. All right, here's a quick look at the roadmap for today. We're going to start with the mystery of those opening letters and how the Quran then says it's super clear. Then, we'll get into the deep emotional stuff, a prophet's heartbreak. From there, we'll look at the huge idea of free will, how people often react to divine mercy, and finally, we'll see this beautiful balance of God's power and compassion that's, well, everywhere.
Okay, so let's dive into this really fascinating paradox. I mean, how can a text start with such a deep mystery, with letters that only God knows the meaning of, and then, in the very next sentence, call itself a book of perfect clarity? Let's unpack that.
So these are known as the disjointed letters, and you'll find them at the beginning of 29 different chapters in the Quran. And while we don't know their ultimate meaning, a lot of scholars think they have a powerful job to do. They're almost like a challenge, right? They highlight that even though the Quran is made of the very same letters that people use every day, no human could ever create something with this much depth and beauty.
And then, boom, right after that mystery, you get this declaration. The book is mubin. It's clear. It's clear in its language, it's clear in its guidance, and it's crystal clear in showing the difference between what's true and what's false. So the mystery of where it comes from doesn't make its message confusing at all. Now the focus shifts. We go from the nature of the book itself to the heart of the person who delivered it. The tone gets really personal, really emotional, and it gives us this incredible window into the human side of being a prophet.
Just let that verse sink in for a second. This is being said to the prophet Muhammad, and it's describing a man who is so full of compassion, so desperate for his people to find the right path, that he's almost destroying himself with sadness because they're rejecting it. It's just an unbelievable glimpse into his character and his love for humanity.
But this verse is also a moment of divine comfort. It's like God is gently reminding the prophet, look, your job is to deliver the message with love and sincerity. But don't let their disbelief eat you up inside, because guiding people, well, that's in my hands, not yours.
And this, of course, leads to a huge theological question, right? It's one people have been asking forever, and the very next verse tackles it head on. Exactly. I mean, if God wants everyone to believe, and the prophet is in so much pain over their disbelief, why not just send some overwhelming, undeniable sign that would force everybody to accept the truth? And the answer here is just brilliant. The verse says that God absolutely could do that. He could send a sign that would leave everyone's necks humbled. What a powerful image for being forced to submit. But see, that would defeat the whole purpose. Faith isn't supposed to be a reflex. It's a conscious, meaningful choice. For belief to have any real worth, it has to be chosen freely.
So, guidance is offered, not forced. But what happens when that offer gets turned down again and again? The next couple of verses describe a really persistent and honestly, a tragic human pattern.
You've got to notice the name used for God right here, Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. Every new reminder, every new revelation is framed as an act of incredible mercy and compassion. So when people turn away, they're not just rejecting some rule. No, they are literally turning their backs on mercy itself. And that rejection often gets worse. It goes from just denying the truth to actively making fun of it, mocking the whole idea of being held accountable. And that's when the verse delivers this very solemn warning. The reality of what you used to mock will come to you. It's not so much a threat as it is a statement of fact about the consequences of our choices. But the passage doesn't just leave us there with that heavy warning. It pivots, moving from the unseen future to the undeniable evidence that's all around us right here, right now. So if people are denying the message, what's the evidence they're ignoring? The Quran's answer here is so profound. It doesn't point to some big supernatural spectacle way off in the distance. No, it points to something much, much closer, something right beneath our feet.
The verse asks this simple, powerful question. Have they not looked at the earth? It tells us to look down, to look at the countless kinds of plants, which the Quran calls these beautiful, noble pears that grow all around us. Every single one, in its unique beauty and how it helps us, in its amazing diversity. It's presented as this profound sign of God's creative power, His wisdom, and His constant care for all of creation. And here we are, full circle. The sign is right there, in the very ground we walk on. The text really emphasizes it. Indeed, and that is surely a sign. The proof isn't missing. The problem, the text suggests, is a failure to just stop and think, a kind of heedlessness or maybe an arrogance that stops our hearts from really seeing what's right in front of our eyes.
And the final verse of this section, wow, it just ties everything together so beautifully. It shows us two of God's attributes in this perfect, awe-inspiring balance. On one hand, He is El-Aziz, the Almighty, the Invincible, the one who can absolutely hold the arrogant accountable. And at the exact same time, He is Ar-Rahim, the All-Merciful, who is constantly sending reminders, providing for us, and giving every single chance for people to turn back to Him.
So to quickly sum up this amazing passage, we've seen that the Quran, even with its mysteries, says its message is clear. We felt that deep compassion that fuels a prophet's mission. We've learned that true faith has to be a choice. We've been reminded that nature is basically an open book of divine signs. And finally, we're left with this gorgeous balance, a God who is both perfectly mighty and perfectly merciful. And that really leaves us with something to think about. Knowing that the universe is run by a power that is both totally mighty and totally merciful, how might that change our perspective? How does that affect the way we see our own choices, our responsibilities, and even our ability to have hope? Thanks so much for joining me.